Welcome back to BNC Live. Well, this week, Congress might have avoided a government shutdown, but come early December, they will be faced with the same issue. The House passed a stopgap funding bill extending government funding through December 3rd. But how does a government shutdown actually impact Black and Brown communities? We turn now to Dr. Jonathan Collins, political science professor from Brown University, for more on this. Dr. Collins, welcome back. It's good to see you this Saturday.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. Happy to be here.
So, Dr. Collins, we hear about the potential government shutdowns all the time, and it somewhat kind of becomes a little bit numb to us. But there could be some real consequences for people who look like you and I if it were to happen. Talk about that.
Well, it could affect us in a number of different ways. I'll start with the direct impact that it has for federal employees. And so, in 2013, we saw the damage that something like a government shutdown can really do. So in 2013, you had about 800,000 federal employees that were furloughed, over 1 million federal employees that were working without pay. Now, when you think about who composes the overall sort of body of federal employees, a lot of Black folks, a lot of Black and Brown folks. So about 18% of federal employees are African American, and then another 8% are Latinx. And so you're talking about a sizable portion. What the federal shutdown also does is, to the extent that it does enable federal employees to remain paid, there's a cutoff where the first people who are on the chopping block are what they consider non-essential federal employees. These are folks like our brothers and sisters that work at the TSA, who are working at airports and are, again, federal employees, but considered non-essential. And they're the first on the chopping block when it comes to time to not only take away paychecks, but ask people to work for free.
So it, obviously impacts people and their families at that point, because without being able to have that money coming in.
Absolutely. And then if you're on any kind of federal program service, this could affect you as well. Now, so when we see a partial shutdown, this doesn't mean that, okay, I'm enrolled in Medicare and my access to Medicare is going to stop. But what it does mean is that if there's any kind of administrative error, let's say you recently moved and you need to file a change of an address, or maybe your check was mailed to the wrong address and you need some sort of clerical error fixed or sort of approved. When we have a government shutdown, there are no government employees in the offices to actually fix these problems. So things will work well for the people who are enrolled in federal programs as long as those things are running smoothly. But if there's any hiccup, you could see a direct impact on, again, your ability to access your health care, your ability to access unemployment benefits, your ability to access any kind of support or subsidy that is being granted to you through a federal program. This could immediately be snatched away if there's any kind of hiccup.
And Dr. Collins, we know it can kind of get also expensive. So who's impacted by the cost of these shutdowns the most? The Congressional Budget Office found that a partial shutdown back in 2019 cost the economy about $11 billion. I repeat, $11 billion. Does that take away from money from much needed programs, especially when it comes to our Black and Brown communities?
Absolutely. If you look at what is on the legislative agenda for Congress and President Biden, what's laying in the background is the big infrastructure bill. And a big component of the infrastructure bill is investments in anti-poverty programs. And these are programs that are particularly important for our communities. Now, if we get bogged down in a government shutdown and end up having to spend so much money back paying essentially debt that we accumulate through allowing the shutdown to continue, this weakens our ability to invest in the kinds of anti-poverty programs that we're going to be seeing centered in this infrastructure bill discussion. And so, what happens with the government shutdown, if it's possibly sort of put back on the table, if it's extended, and especially if it turns from a partial shutdown to a full shutdown, this could be something that we're paying the price for years to come.
And what about how can our communities prepare for a possible shutdown, if there's anything they can do, especially with December 3rd just 2 months away?
I think if you're a part of any kind of federal program, make sure that all of your information is up to date. Make sure that your address is properly on file. Make sure that there are no issues with the contact information, your telephone number, again, proof of address. Make sure that every information that is needed for the federal government to get in contact with you or be able to deliver any kind of good or service that you're receiving. Make sure that that information is up to date. Also, do what we do best in our community, which is look out for our own. If you know folks in your family, a lot of us have family members who are federal workers and may be on the cusp of a furlough. Make sure that we're looking out for them, protecting their best interests, making sure that they're safe both mentally, financially, and just in terms of their overall mental health.
That is a lot of good advice there. So how does this actually impact, the impact of a shutdown actually affect someone like you if you're a new parent?
Yeah, for me, it impacts me as a new parent in a number of different ways. I have a 4-month-old baby, a daughter, and for her, I have to think about some of the public spaces that we like to occupy, especially during the pandemic. We love to go to parks. We love to go to, or at least try to go to the zoo, museums, different outdoor spaces that allow us to be safe while still exposing our baby to a lot of the beauty of our environment. But when government shutdowns are put on the table, a lot of the government, the public facilities are forced to close. And so this really places a restriction on the ability for myself and my wife to be out in our community and expose our daughter to some of our surroundings, which is really key to her, her development, especially at this stage.
Yeah, it definitely is. It takes me back to when I was a kid, and we know the impact that it has on our lives, just being able to see those things. Well, Dr. Collins, we know we got to make sure they get it right. Like I said, December 3rd is around the corner, so hopefully they do. We appreciate your time tonight.